My name is Elowen Wynn, and the last time I stood in the same room as my sister, she laughed at me like I was a punchline to a joke she'd waited decades to deliver. It was a corporate mixer, sleek marble floors, champagne flutes, and name tags that told you who mattered. She was glowing in her black sheath dress, surrounded by colleagues from the marketing team, working the room like it was hers. I didn't walk in to steal anyone's spotlight. I was invited quietly, discreetly, by the board. But I barely made it 5 steps before Diana's eyes landed on me. And with that smirk she'd perfected since we were kids, she tilted her head and said loudly, "Wow! Didn't expect to see you here. Did you get lost on your way to the job fair?" The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, just careless. The kind of laugh that stings more because they genuinely believed I didn't belong. But then her boss walked in. He stopped mid-step, eyes locking on mine, and in a voice that sliced through the chatter, he said, "Elowen Wynn, that's our CEO." And just like that, the room that had giggled forgot how to breathe. Growing up in the Wynn household meant learning early that some people shine effortlessly, while others are expected to clap from the sidelines. Diana, my younger sister by 2 years, had the kind of charisma that filled every room before she even spoke. Blonde curls, dimpled smile, perfect posture. She was my parents' pride on display, their polished trophy. I was the quiet one, with ink-stained fingers and a head full of circuitry diagrams. My mother used to sigh when I came home with science fair ribbons saying, "Maybe next year you'll learn how to wear mascara instead." Our childhood wasn't abusive. It was just imbalanced. Diana didn't steal the spotlight. She was handed it. She never had to ask for applause. It came wrapped around every little thing she did. Solo in the school play? She got roses. Lead the fundraiser? They called the local paper. Meanwhile, I once rebuilt a computer tower from scraps, and my dad asked if I'd remembered to clean the garage after. When we were teenagers, the gulf between us widened. Diana became prom royalty and student council president, while I slipped into the background with robotics club and late-night coding marathons. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone with a friend, laughing. "No, Elowen's not really the type to lead anything. She's more behind the scenes, like the person who hands out flyers, not the one on stage." That stuck with me longer than I'd like to admit. It didn't help that our parents reinforced the roles. At 19, when Diana got accepted into a top-tier business school, there was a dinner party, balloons, champagne. When I got a full ride to a state university for engineering, my mother handed me a used suitcase and said, "Well, at least you'll be practical." We weren't close, but we weren't at war either. Just misaligned. I stopped trying to explain my world to hers, and she never once asked what lit me up inside. We became relatives in a shared space, speaking in polite nods, defaulting to habit at holidays. By 25, I moved out with no intention of returning. I'd taken a job across the country as a junior systems architect for a lean, gritty startup run out of a basement that smelled like burnt coffee and solder. I didn't tell anyone except my roommate. No big speech, no family hug at the airport, just a one-way ticket and the quiet relief of not having to shrink myself anymore. Diana, meanwhile, stayed close to home, soaring through internships, landing a position at a trendy media firm downtown. Every Christmas, she brought glossy gift bags with her company's logo, slid across the table with a rehearsed smile. She made 6 figures, had a condo with a wine fridge, and once told me, without irony, that authenticity is the new luxury. Our parents adored her. They still do. They called her our little firecracker. They called me when they needed their router fixed. And yet, there was never hate. Not really, just erosion. Years of hearing who you are by the way people don't see you. Years of showing up, only to be gently reminded you were never the one they expected greatness from. When I started my own company at 32, quietly, without fanfare, I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was hiding, but because by then, I understood the silence better than applause. I called it Wynn Tech, partly as a dare, partly as a reminder. The name didn't mean much to anyone but me. It was bootstrapped from my savings, and in the early days, I lived on instant noodles and stress. But the software worked. We helped businesses scale their operations through smart automation, and it grew faster than I expected. 5 years later, we acquired a smaller media analytics company that had incredible creative staff but terrible infrastructure. I kept the acquisition quiet and let it run semi-autonomously under its old brand. I wasn't interested in reshaping them. I just wanted to fund them and watch them thrive. I never expected Diana to be working there. Not until her name popped up during a quarterly review. Diana Wynn, Senior Brand Strategist. I paused, blinked, then kept reading. No action required, no confrontation necessary. She was thriving, and so was I. In parallel, in silence, until the night she mocked me in front of a crowd, without ever realizing whose name paid for the champagne in her glass. I don't remember the moment WinTech took off. There was no thunderclap, no Forbes article, no sudden flood of investors banging down the door. It was quieter than that, like a slow, steady tide creeping in at night while the world sleeps. My first few years running the company were brutal. I wrote code in the mornings, pitched clients in the afternoons, and responded to support tickets long after midnight. I learned how to make a pitch deck that didn't look like it was designed in a basement. I learned how to speak to venture capitalists without shrinking. I learned how to stop apologizing for my voice being soft, so I sharpened the words instead. Every dollar mattered in those early months. I paid myself just enough to survive. When I finally hired my first employee, a brilliant UI/UX designer named Vi, I handed her a laptop and said, "I can't offer you luxury, but I promise you legacy." And she stayed. We built a team that felt nothing like the offices I'd known. No inflated egos, no glass-ceiling smirks, just builders. Quiet, relentless, unapologetically smart builders. Eventually, the platform stabilized, then scaled. By year 3, we'd signed 5 national clients. Year 4 brought our first acquisition, 2 struggling but talented boutique firms, one of which had a media analytics branch with enough creativity to power a small agency. They lacked systems, processes, efficiency. But the ideas? Brilliant. I didn't want to gut them. I wanted to give them room to breathe. So I let them keep their name, their structure, their talent. I installed one of my trusted directors as CEO of the parent shell, with minimal interference. No one needed to know the face behind it all, least of all the employees. It worked better that way. Quiet leadership doesn't rattle cages. It shifts foundations silently. One quarter, during a back-end integration audit, I glanced through their internal performance reports and saw the name again, Diana Wynn. I stared at it for a full minute. She was a senior brand strategist, top of her department in campaign conversions, spearheaded a multi-brand merge that doubled their B2C reach in 6 months. Objectively, impressive. I didn't feel pride or resentment, just a strange, suspended stillness. We were both building empires. She just didn't know I had mine. That irony might have amused me once, but by then, it only made me tired. Tired of needing to prove anything. Tired of wishing she'd ever asked who I became after I walked out of our parents' house at 25. In her world, I was still the girl with no makeup and too many books. And maybe that was easier, for both of us. I didn't reach out. I didn't correct her. I didn't reveal who signed her bonus check. But I noticed things, like how her department suddenly had upgraded software tools, mine. How their funding round went through seamlessly, because I approved it. How she presented at a regional tech conference and cited figures pulled directly from WinTech's backend. She stood on the shoulders of a platform she didn't even know she was standing on. Still, I stayed away. Until the board asked me to attend the company's 5-year partner gala. Not as a figurehead, not as an honored guest, just show up. Mingle. Let people see the person behind the infrastructure. They said it would humanize the brand. I agreed, reluctantly. I didn't need attention. But the team had earned a night of celebration, and I owed them that. It never occurred to me that Diana would be there too. That she'd see me walk in and still not know who I was. That she would default to the same instinct she always had. Mock first, understand later. I arrived 15 minutes after the event started. Long enough for people to settle, for conversations to warm. I wore a navy pantsuit, clean lines, understated jewelry. No glam team, no PR entrance. Just me, stepping into the lobby with my invitation on my phone. The moment her voice called out from across the room, I knew. Same inflection, same amusement edged with condescension. "Wow!" she laughed, loud enough for her circle to hear. "Did you get lost on the way to the career fair?" The people around her chuckled. She still didn't know, but the man standing behind me, the regional managing director of operations, did. And when he stepped forward and said, "You don't recognize Miss Wynn? She's the reason this company exists." I turned and nodded politely. No need to smile. Legacy speaks louder than laughter ever will. The ballroom shimmered with money. That was the first thing I noticed. Crystal chandeliers, servers gliding with trays of gold-rimmed champagne flutes, velvet-backed signage with embossed branding. It wasn't overdone, but it was intentional. The kind of ambiance that whispered, "You made it." I kept my distance, scanning the room without drawing attention. Most people didn't know me. Fewer would care. I wasn't the kind of CEO that walked around introducing herself with titles. I didn't need to be recognized. That was never the point. I spotted Diana before she saw me. She was standing in the center of a semicircle, champagne in one hand, the other gesturing mid-story. Her laugh rang out effortlessly, lighting up the group of coworkers around her. Same effortless command, same brightness, same edge. It had been years since I'd seen her in person. She hadn't changed much, maybe more poised, more polished, but still carrying that magnetic certainty that the room belonged to her. And maybe it did. Until I stepped in. I didn't mean to interrupt. I truly didn't. I was walking toward the bar when she caught sight of me. Her eyes flickered, confused at first. Then recognition bloomed, followed swiftly by a smirk that curled just enough to sting. "Elowen?" she called out, her voice higher than necessary. "Oh my God, you came?" Several heads turned. I stopped, gave a neutral nod. She took a sip from her glass and tilted her head, mock curiosity oozing from every syllable. "What brings you here? You lost? Or just networking for something?" The group around her chuckled, not unkindly, just instinctively. The way people laugh when they're told it's safe to. Someone asked, "You two know each other?" Diana beamed. "She's my sister. Elowen was always the brains of the family, just never the event type, you know?" I could have said something. I had a dozen truths in my mouth, any of which would have burned through her facade in seconds. But I didn't, because I knew what was coming. The regional director of operations, Michael, had just arrived. He caught my eye from across the room and raised a hand, walking toward me. Diana didn't notice. She was too busy spinning nostalgia into something performative. "You still doing the tech stuff?" she asked. "You know, that computer thing? Or was it freelancing?" It was then that Michael stepped beside me and cleared his throat. The group turned. He extended a hand, not to Diana, but to me. "Miss Wynn, thank you for coming." Diana blinked. "Wait, Ms. Wynn?" Michael smiled gently, gesturing toward the stage just behind us. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, just a moment before dinner is served." The room quieted in waves. Michael stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "I'd like to introduce someone very important to our entire operation, someone whose vision and investment shaped the foundation of not only this branch, but the growth we've experienced company-wide." A few heads turned toward me. Diana stared, frozen. "This is Miss Elowen Wynn," Michael said, "founder and CEO of Wynn Tech, our parent company and the force behind every tool and strategy you use daily." Silence. Complete. Heavy. Even the music had stopped. Diana's face was unreadable. Not because she was composed, but because she didn't know what expression to wear. Her mouth parted slightly, eyes flitting between me and the people now looking at her for answers. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just stepped forward, took the microphone Michael offered, and said, "I'm honored to be here tonight. Not to be recognized, but to recognize you. Your work, your creativity, your resilience. I built the tools, but you made them sing. Applause broke out. Polite, measured, but real. I handed the mic back and turned toward the bar. As I walked past Diana, she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You never said anything?" I didn't stop walking, but I replied softly without turning. "You never asked." I didn't return to the circle. I walked to the far end of the room where the lighting dimmed and conversation thinned. Not because I was upset, just full. Some moments don't need an audience, and Diana, well, she had hers. From across the ballroom, I saw her face shift. Her laugh faded. The color drained slowly, like realization creeping up her spine. A coworker leaned in, whispered something. She nodded stiffly. Michael approached with a glass of wine. "You handled that well," he said. "She didn't know," I replied. "She does now," he said, and walked off with a respectful nod. The room adjusted like a stage being relit. People looked over with new eyes. A few approached, cautiously. Polite congratulations, small talk, subtle respect. I offered the same calm I always had. Let them come to their own conclusions. I wasn't there to impress them. I was simply the truth that had always been standing behind the curtain. I noticed Diana slip away toward the restrooms. When she returned, her eyes were pink. Not from crying, not quite, but shaken, and trying not to show it. By dessert, I was ready to leave. The staff brought out plated cakes, and the playlist softened to jazz. I thanked the coordinator and turned to go, only to find her standing by the exit, waiting. "You have a second?" she asked. "Just one," I said. We stepped into the hallway outside the ballroom. "I didn't know," she said. "I know," I replied. She looked down at her hands. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" I shrugged lightly. "Because you never asked." "I wasn't trying to be cruel earlier," she added. "I just didn't expect— you always stayed away from stuff like this. And you always assumed that meant I didn't belong." Her mouth opened slightly, then shut again. For once, she didn't have a quick reply. "I wasn't here to prove anything to you, Diana. I came because the board invited me, because the people in this company earned a night to be seen, and I respect that. I'm not interested in humiliating you." She nodded slowly, almost like she didn't trust her voice. "I believed what people told me about you," she said quietly. "That you were quiet, too much in your head. I never imagined that I was building something," I asked. She looked up. "That you were the one holding all this together." There was no pride in her voice, just something like awe or regret. I didn't let it hang too long. "We all become the version of ourselves people expect, unless we choose not to," I said. I stopped waiting to be asked about mine. That's when it changed. She swallowed hard, then said, "So what happens now?" "Now? You go back to your work, I go back to mine. Maybe next time we speak, it'll be as equals, not roles we didn't choose." She gave a faint nod. I turned and walked away. She didn't stop me. I never told our parents what happened that night. There was no speech, no text, no subtle drop of information between holidays or phone calls. What would be the point? To them, Diana would always be the bright one, the daughter with the polished smile and the clever quips, the one who brought home promotions and holiday photos that belonged in catalogs. And I was the quiet one with some company out east doing technical things, vague enough to be ignored, safe enough to forget. If I had told them I owned the very company Diana worked for, they would have blinked, confused, maybe proud in that shallow, belated way that tastes more like salt than sweetness. So I didn't. A week after the gala, Diana messaged me. "I'm sorry, I see it now." No excuses, no long explanations, just that. And for once, that was enough. I didn't respond, not to hurt her, just because I didn't need anything more. She'd seen it, truly seen it. 30 days later, I transferred 10% of my WinTech equity into a permanent employee trust. Quietly, no interviews, no social media posts, just a signature, a decision. Let the builders inherit what they helped create. As for me, I still enter rooms the same way, quiet, measured. but I don't walk small anymore. I don't wonder if I belong. I don't wait for anyone to acknowledge my place. Because now, when someone says win, they don't think of the girl who lit up dinner parties with curated charm. They think of the structure, the ownership, the vision. They think of the woman who built something unshakable and never once asked to be applauded for it. Not everyone needs a spotlight. Some of us become legacy by design.